Um, no, it's fine. It's fine. The students were having a pizza party, so I went down there to get pizza, and there was no pizza. So if you notice me chewing, there's pizza down there because I ate the first one. So I scarfed it down like I was a teenager. I did have a little bit of Amanda's cake today. That was my lunch. And so that's like the only thing I've had with that one little slice of pizza. So it was very good. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off in our study of the Ten Commandments, which we technically did last week, but we just focused a little more in on the first two with idolatry. So Exodus 20, we want to look at the third commandment. And remember that there is no phrase, 10 commandments in the Bible. It's actually called 10 words. So what we're doing is I'm wanting to attach a single word that captures the idea of what this commandment is communicating for us. So this one, the word we have is represent. Now, I'm going to ask that you stick with me because you're going to disagree with me, but I think I can convince you to consider this commandment in a slightly different way, just slightly. Exodus 20, verse 7. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now, I don't know what kind of fan you are. I think there are, in general, two types of fans when it comes to rooting for your team. There's the type of fan who only thing you care about are wins and trophies, championships, that sort of stuff. You don't care who the players are. You don't care who the coaches are. You would fire a coach after 3 games if it meant you'd win more games. You just don't care. Only thing that matters is winning games. Then there are fans who they care more about the atmosphere, enjoying the players, getting to know them, watching them the ups and downs, and then watching maybe a coach build a program. So maybe, the team's struggling, coach comes in, you give him that year or two, and then he slowly builds. And so what matters to you is the culture, the atmosphere of the team. So think of a scenario. Say you're watching NFL, basketball, whatever, and there is a free agent. He was released from his team because he got into legal trouble. Kind of a bad news sort of guy. You know that this guy, everywhere he goes, he stirs the pot. However, he's like the best player in the league. Maybe he's the best wide receiver, quarterback, point guard, whatever sport he is. He is the best. And you know that if your team brings him on, you're immediately going to improve. Do you bring this guy onto your team? Now, it may depend on what kind of fan you are. If you're the sort of fan, winning is the most important. You're thinking, well, it's not my job to rein him in. It's the coach's job. And if he can't rein him in, we'll just get another coach. And sometimes that can work out. The example that comes to mind is Dennis Rodman. Remember, with the Chicago Bulls. Remember that the coach, his name's leaving me, like greatest NBA coaches of all time. He came to Jordan and says, do we really want Dennis Rodman of all things? And of course, Jordan says, we need Dennis Rodman. We can handle all the other stuff. And to give the Bulls credit, they accepted the weirdness of Rodman. Oh gosh. What is it? Phil Jackson. My goodness, I'm ashamed I just couldn't come up with that. Phil Jackson was real good. There was that Rodman had a longer leash than everyone else. That's the way we would normally put it. And that worked out well because the whole team bought into this is a weirdo. We're going to let the weirdo be weird because he shows up on game day. But in general, my Bengals in the NFL, man, they have gotten some rascals and they have burned more than they have built. Those are two types of fans. I don't know which ones you are. I'll tell you which one I am. I'm the one that I care about the atmosphere and whatnot. Championships, you're going to say this because you're a Louisville fan. Championships are not as important to me as the team itself. I want to like the team. I want to like the coaching staff. I want to like the players. I want to like the atmosphere. I want to like that. So my favorite Louisville team is the one, what year is it? 2011. Yeah, 2011 was the year they lost to Morehead State in the first round of the tournament. Now, they should have never lost to Morehead State. However, that team, it was a rebuilding year. We had just come off of the Terrence Williams and the Earl Clark and all that. And so we knew they were not going to be the best team in the squad. One and done wasn't really a thing at the time, at least certainly not the way it is now or later on with Calipari. And so, but I really liked those players. My favorite player on that team, he was a senior. His name was Preston Knowles. Some of you all may remember him. He was out of Winchester, I think. When he was a freshman, he was worthless. He was an Energizer bunny and nothing else. And then he thought, well, Pitino really likes defense, so if I'm an Energizer bunny on defense, I'll get more playing time. And he got a little bit more. And then he thought, if I was an Energizer bunny on defense that can hit an outside shot, I'll get to play more. And by his senior year, he was the star. You Kentucky fans, bless your heart, I think you agree with me. You don't have nicknames that everyone recognizes for all your teams. But I'm willing to bet the 1991-1992 team, the Unforgettables. Now, were they the best team in the country? No. Did they have the most talent? No. Why do you like that team? Because they stuck around. They weathered probation and all that nonsense, and then they fought and gave everything they have. And to this day, they can get away with anything. In fact, one of them was an elected official, almost got away with everything. But anyways, I shouldn't have said that. But anyways, there's two types, and the difference is, what do you want players and coaches, the team, to represent? Because in many ways, in fandom, it's weird, but those teams almost represent us, and we think we ought to represent them. I think if you can grasp that idea, you can understand why this third commandment is there. Because I think for most of us, it's a bit of an odd command. I mean, if you have 10 commandments from God, I'm willing to bet, and if we made it up, this probably would not make the top 10 in our own lives. Yet what in the world is actually going on here? Well, let's look at the meaning. We got to move quickly. The meaning. Well, without a doubt, the most common interpretation of this commandment is that you should not use God's name as a swear. Without a doubt, that is the most common thing. So, in fact, if you go and see what's in a movie before you go watch it, try and decide if you want to take your kids. That's a good thing to do. It may say a lot of your websites, particularly those Christian websites, will say the Lord's name is taken in vain 7 times or whatever it is. And that's what they mean by that, and it's taken straight from this third commandment. However, other interpretations have been proposed. Let me give you a few. I'm stealing this from another scholar. Some have suggested it is describing using God's name to authorize a false oath, or using God's name to authorize false teaching, or using God's name in magic. I would talk to the prosperity heretics on that one, because they're certainly guilty of it. At least one scholar's proposed, it's coming to God without sacrifices, that you come unprepared with appropriate sacrifices. In fact, one scholar has counted there's at least 24 different interpretations of this command. Now, there's one that everyone, it seems almost universal, well popular, but there are other interpretations. But there's a major problem with these interpretations. It assumes the commandment is regulating speech. And so when we read it, we think, okay, it's about saying the name of God in a vain way. But I think we have made a certain presupposition that isn't actually there. Now, to be clear, the Bible does condemn, and it says a lot about our tongue. So let me just give you, I think, just 4 verses actually. Matthew 12, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word that they speak. Okay, so I'm going to give you I'm going to tweak our interpretation, but not at the cost of the way that we often interpret it. Ephesians 4, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up as fits the occasion. So be careful what you say. Colossians 4:6, the parallel. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so you may know how to answer each person. One last one, James 1. Apparently I didn't put it up there. James 1:26. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. So on the one end, the Bible is clear about the language we use, and I do not think we should be flippant when it comes to the divine name. However, I don't think that's the main point of what's going on here. It's not concerned with how we speak God's name. Something else is going on with the name. I want to highlight one word in particular, verse 7. It says, you shall not take, that's the verb. You shall not take. Does anyone have a different translation? I'll look this up. I think it's pretty universal. Misuse? Yeah, that's the one I find a lot. Does someone else have misuse? I think Net has misuse, Holman Christian. Do you know what translation you have, Ms. Betty? NIV? Okay. So you probably either have take or misuse. Misuse is going to be more of an interpretive. So it's assuming the interpretation that we all come across. And that probably is the most common translation here. The word means carry. That's all it means. It just means carry. Let me give you one example here. Psalm 16. The sorrows of those who run after another god shall multiply. Their drink offerings of blood I will not pour out. Or, now I want you to notice this. Here's that word carry. I will not carry their names on my lips. Notice this is the same phrase found in Exodus 20. Carry the name. But I want you to notice in this psalm, we are told explicitly that the concern is language. They carry the name on my lips. We lack that specificity in this commandment. So what does it mean then to carry the name? We're carrying the name of God, but it's not in reference to speech, at least not explicitly. Now we can make that application, but what does it mean explicitly? So what we have to do is we actually have to do a little bit of homework. We got to do a little bit of detective work to figure out how does this phrase work? What does it mean to carry a name, or just the name in general? This is more than the way we talk about God and other things. So you have your Bibles, turn to Exodus 28. Okay, you can keep it there in chapter 20 if you want to. We'll do a little bit of bouncing around. Exodus 28. So this is the section of Exodus everyone skips. It's all about the construction and regulation of the tabernacle, Aaron, and the priesthood. So in chapter 28, verse 29, it says, so Aaron shall bear the names of the sons of Israel. I'm going to stop there. What verb do you have there? I have bear. You have carrying? Carry? Okay. It's the same word in Exodus 20. Same word. In fact, it's the same phrase, carry the name. Same thing. And so Aaron is to carry the names of the sons of Israel in the breastpiece of judgment on his heart when he goes into the holy place to bring them to regular remembrance for the Lord. So what's going on here is that when Aaron enters the tabernacle and later when the high priest enters the temple, he carries a pouch on his chest, is decorated with 12 precious stones, and each of them carry the names of the tribes of Israel. So what you have then is Aaron as Israel's representative carrying the names of Israel before God. But it's actually, it works both ways. He's carrying the names to God, but as Israel's representative, he is carrying the name of God to Israel. Both are true. This is why the high priest is such an important figure in ancient Israel life. Now, we don't really have this because Jesus is a true and better high priest, and we don't need a temple. But this is critical to Jewish theology. He is literally bearing the names of Israel. But he does so as a representative. Go over in chapter 28, verse 36. So he has a pouch there on his chest. Verse 36 tells us what's on his head. It says, you shall make a plate of pure gold and engrave on it, like the engravings of a signet, holy to the Lord. So the high priest would have what we today would call a turban. So he has a head covering, and on the front is this gold plate that says holy to the Lord. So again, he is functioning as Israel's representative. He is made holy to stand before the Holy One. And so if the high priest is unclean, he is representing an unclean people. And so it's imperative. He comes before the Lord. He goes through all the washings and everything. He's made clean. And he's bearing the name of Israel to God. But then he's bearing the name of God to Israel. He is the representative of Israel. Now, with that said, go back to chapter 19. Now, we spent some time on this to introduce the Ten Commandments. Chapter 19, verses 5 and 6. We read this, now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. You see, both ideas are there. Priesthood and holiness, they go together with Aaron and the priesthood in general. So right away, before we come into the Ten Commandments, when they enter into the Mosaic covenant, what are they agreeing to? As Aaron represents us before God and God before us, so we will represent God before the nations and the nations before God. So in that sense, they are carrying the name of Yahweh, because that's what Aaron does as priest. Aaron carries the name of Israel. He carries the name of Yahweh, holy unto the Lord. And this is the responsibility of Israel. Now, this is laid out before we get Ten Commandments. Right? That you are a kingdom of priests. And so, what we get then is this significant row. So in number 6, we read this. The Lord spoke to Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, thus you shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Right? That's the part we know that blessing. But notice how it finishes. And I put in italics. So shall they put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them. Now I want you to pause there. Without any context, if you're being honest with yourself, what in the world does that phrase, my name, mean? You're going to put my name on them. That is not an American way of thinking. Because a name it's a noun, yes, but it's not something you can touch, not something you can see. It's something you can pronounce, yes, and it's important for identity. But what is meant there? You shall put my name upon the people of Israel. Clearly, there is something more going on here. So the blessing is associated with the name. If you are carrying my name well, you are blessed. So don't carry it in vain. Carry it in a way that brings a blessing. So as Aaron bears the name of Israel, Israel bears the name of Yahweh. So God doesn't want his people to accept his claim on them, but then go out and live differently among their pagan neighbors. You can see why this is so significant. That they are being brought into the promised land at which they are to restore, essentially, the Garden of Eden. And so when God blesses them, because they are obedient, they are carrying the name of God. But when they disobey the Lord and go after foreign idols, they are carrying the name of God in vain. It is worthless, and they will be held account. That's the basic meaning of this commandment. Now, one of the ways you may carry it in vain is to be flippant with the name, and we'll come back to that. But that's only a small part of what this commandment is really all about. So when you get the meaning, let's look quickly at the application. And I don't think we need to spend forever on this. However, I was thinking of a good buddy of mine. He was in the news recently. He pastors in the Taylorsville area. So in Louisville News, he was choking at a restaurant, like really choking. And I just did my CPR training last week, so, I don't want to use it. But a fireman was there. And so the fireman came and saved his life, and they did a whole story on the news. It was cool. He shared it online. That was awesome. Rick is a good friend of mine. I love him dearly. I don't know where I would be without him and a few others. But he tells the story. Rick is the guy, not to pick on you, Doug, about you do know you're good looking. It's his brother that did that story. All right. I feel like I have to explain that. His daughter was dating a guy that his brother didn't like, and so he leaned across his daughter and said, you do know you're good looking, which is a nice way to say, and like, you should raise your standards with the guys you date, I've always thought that was funny. Anyway, so when his son went on a first date, I'm going to do this as if it's me rather than Rick's. You don't know Rick. He wrote on his son's hand, CMM. C stood for Christian. The first M stands for McDaniel in this case, and the third one stands for man. What he explained is you're going to go on a date, and with that comes certain things you need to know. First of all, you're a Christian, and the expectations you will act like a Christian. You carry the name of Christ. You're to act like a Christian. Also, you have been given a name, and with that name comes generations of people who have invested in the good integrity and reputation of that name. Do not do anything for the rest of your life to bring shame upon that name. Finally, you're a man, and there are certain expectations upon you as a man as you go out on this date. And I have those expectations on you because I am a man, and I'm giving you those expectations. I find that to be a really insightful. But what he's saying is I think it's true. That you have attached to yourself a name, Christian, and you know your surname, and then you know your gender. With that comes certain expectations. If you want to use a sports illustration, coaches like to say, play for the name on the front of your jersey, not the name on the back. What do they mean by that? Is that if you play for the name on the back, and a lot of celebrations, and soccer's bad about this, is they do this thing. You see this in football. Right, what they're saying is, you know, I'm the man. You know, don't look at the team name. Look at this guy, the real star. And it's not a good thing to do. I just if I were getting paid to coach, like my future, my family's future was determined on, you know, teenagers and young adults kicking a ball or throwing a ball or something. I just probably wouldn't tolerate that. But in soccer, I know I do soccer. They will often point to the badge, and what they're saying is you know, I represent this. And I think that's a better approach to sports, is because you represent that team, and that means something. Don't make it about yourself. Now, we as humans bear the image of God by nature, by our creation, and thus we are called to represent that God. You understand that image bearing was a common idea in the ancient world. The gods had images. They're called idols. Kings had images, and kings also had representatives. We have ambassadors today. It's probably the closest we have. So the ambassador of the United States is as if they are speaking for the president of the United States and Secretary of State. This idea is all over the ancient world. So as image bearers, we are called to represent God, and it is best we do not carry that name in vain. So ultimately, this command is about representation and fidelity. So two applications. The first is worship. If you don't believe me, read the first two commandments. Don't have any other gods, don't have graven images. I think this is evident. If we become like the gods we worship, which is what we talked about last week, we cannot image and bear the name of Yahweh when we are worshiping other gods. So the only way you can properly carry the name of God is if you are worshiping Him. That's the only way you can do it. You've got to get those first two right in order for this one to make any sense. Consider David's language in this context in 2 Samuel 7. Therefore you are great, O Lord God, for there is none like you, and there is no God beside you, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And who is, oh, by the way, notice, we've heard with your ears, we've not seen with our eyes, because Israel was not a visual faith. You didn't have images. You didn't need the images of the God because you are the image of God. You understand? That's a radical idea in the ancient world, and it's still a radical idea today. Anyways, he goes on. Who is like your people Israel, the one nation on earth whom God went to redeem to be His people, making Himself a name? Look at there. God made Himself a name. Now, in this context, it's a name of glory because God's actions resulted in His reputation. And His reputation is one of redemption. You made for yourself a name, and doing for them great and awesome things by driving out before your people, whom you redeemed for yourself from Egypt, a nation and its gods. So you see then that David, in this context of worship, he is driven by the thought, not that just that God has a name, but that He has made for Himself a name. And David understands that worship is the primary way by which we carry the name of God. At the heart, this is an issue of worship. But the second application here, like how do we keep from breaking it, is conduct. I think this is really obvious. Christians are called to represent the God they worship. Is that too complicated? We are called to represent the God we worship. The word Christ means anointed one, means Messiah. So Christians are the anointed ones, the little anointed ones. And so in our name, we are bearing the name of the God we worship, the God who saved us. And it would be best if we did not carry that name in vain. Did you all know that in your hymn book is a Catholic hymn? Did you know that? Yeah? You've sang it 1,000,000 times. Maybe 500,000. I don't want to exaggerate. But you've sang it a bunch, right? Now, I say it's a Catholic hymn. In truth, it's a hymn written by a Catholic priest. His name is Peter Schultz. I'm probably mispronouncing that last name. Written in the 1960s, and nothing bad came from the 1960s. Those of y'all who were there, thank you. Thank you for giving us a decade where nothing crazy happened. Nothing. Thank you. As a millennial who's been blamed for everything, I'd like to thank you boomers for giving us the 1960s where everything was exactly the way it should have been. Thank you. Thank you. I wish we could live up to your standards, but I guess we can't. But this cat in the 1960s wrote a hymn we have sang. What is it? They will know we are Christians by our love. Written by Catholic priests. Now, it's pretty ecumenical. I don't think we should take it out of our hymn books. I think it's fine we sing it. But the premise is actually quite simple. How will people know that we are Christians? And the answer is if we bear the name of Christ, not in a vain way, but in a righteous way. We carry an important responsibility. This is why hypocrisy is, it brings great shame upon the gospel and its God. When, say, a minister falls, the damage that can do is rather significant. But it isn't just a minister. It's a dad. It's a mom. It's a friend. It's a coworker. It's a church member. It's a neighbor. Hypocrisy brings great shame upon the gospel, and what you discover is that what's happening is you're carrying the name of God in vain. Now, this requires us to double down on our efforts to be more like Christ. But ultimately what we need to see here is that this command is a warning against covenantal infidelity and religious hypocrisy. We represent Christ. We carry his name. But with that said, it's still a weird way to put it, isn't it? You carry the name. So I want to talk about that name. That's not an Americanism. We don't talk now. And the closest we'll get is as I use an illustration about my good buddy Rick, is I may say to my son, you carry our last name. Right? And I would say as a husband, the fact that my wife changed her last name to mine gives me extra responsibility because now she's anchoring her ship on that name. And so I ought to be even more careful with what I do with that name, So that's as close as we get in our culture. But in the Bible, name is really, really, really important. In the Old Testament, name signifies more than legal identification. It represents presence, especially as it relates to God himself. So you're in Exodus 20. Turn over to your right a few pages, Exodus 23. I think this is a good place to start. We are going somewhere with this, so stick with me. Exodus 23. We want to read verses 20 and 21. So God says, "Behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you to the place that I prepared." Now, this is, I believe, the angel of the Lord. It's the same being along with Yahweh that spoke to Moses in the burning bush. So I think this is the angel of the Lord. This is made evident elsewhere. But what we need to see here is separation. God is speaking here, right, because he's on Mount Sinai, and he's saying, I'm sending my angel. I'm sending a messenger. The word angel just means messenger. So I will send my angel before you. And it says, verse 21, "Pay careful attention to him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgressions." There it is. "For my name is in him." So what do we know about this angel? One is he is associated with divine attributes. He has the power to forgive or not. Remember when Jesus said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven"? You remember that the Pharisees rightly were a bit tiffed? Like, time out. No one can do that but God. But then you read here that there's an angel that has the authority to forgive. Maybe the Pharisees didn't know their Bibles. Well, they knew him pretty well. They would have had all of the Pentateuch at least memorized. What you have here, and this is a real mystery for a lot of Judaism, is we're going to see this, is that the angel is separate from God who is speaking, yet is God who is speaking. If you can't grasp that concept, read the burning bush narrative. The narrative mixes this. God, Yahweh, speaks to Moses, but it's the angel of the Lord in the fire. And it's hard to follow because they are one and the same, yet they are distinct. I'm a Christian, so I see Trinity there. But you're getting that here. But notice, my name is in him. So the presence of God here is pictured with that phrase of name. My name is in him. We related to that, so remember, it is the angel is going to lead the people of Israel out. Deuteronomy 4. And because he loved your fathers and chose their offspring after them and brought you out of Egypt with his own presence by his great power. Now notice here, it is he, that is God, was present. Now we just read, no, an angel was the one present. In Deuteronomy it says, no, God was the one present. Which is it? The answer is yes. Remember that an angel will go before you, the angel of the Lord, and my name is in him. Name is the presence of God. It is God himself. So in the narrative, it is the angel of the Lord, but they are to understand that God is the one shepherding the shepherd. Moses is the shepherd of the people of Israel, and he follows the fire at night, the cloud by day. He follows the name. And you can put it that way, that what led the Israelites through the wilderness was the name. So don't get bogged down by angel or whatnot. The name is leading them through the wilderness. Now, you may already know this, but that big part because of this third commandment. Even to this day, there are Jews who will not pronounce the name of God. God's name is given, Exodus 3, Yahweh, I am that I am. It really means to be, that is to be. No, it's not Shakespeare. That is to say that God is the essence of essence. It's virtually impossible to translate. Even what we have is debated. Anyways, so what Israelites will do, and what the Jews have done throughout history, is they will take the letters of Yahweh and they will insert other vowels, particularly the vowels from Adonai. And when you take it through Germanic languages and it comes into English, the name Yahweh mixed with Adonai becomes the word Jehovah. That's where that word comes from. It is the way to say God's name without saying God's name. My wife, her Old Testament professor at U of L, they do have that at that pagan school. She would never write God, not even Yahweh, but God. She would write G, so from y'all's angle, G-D. It was a way to say, you know what I'm writing, but I dare not write the name. We have ancient manuscripts where this comes into play, where they either wouldn't write the name, or if they did write it, the story goes they would pause, take a shower or something like that, and come back to it. The name was sacred because of this idea. The name represents more than a legal document. The name is the very presence of God. It's what it represents. And so you really have two options. You can refer to God as Adonai, which means Lord, the Hebrew word for Lord. Or what some will do is instead of saying Yahweh, they say the name. You can refer to him as the name. Now, we don't do this as Christians, but this is a common practice in Israel. And so when Moses states that the angel has his name in him, he is claiming that God himself is present. Consider also Deuteronomy 12. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, but you shall seek the place that the Lord your God will choose out of all your tribes to put his name and to make his habitation there. There you shall go. It's talking about the tabernacle, future temple. That God's presence is going to be with his people when you get to the promised land. But notice he doesn't say, yeah, I'm going to show up one day and that's going to be really cool. What he's saying is, my name, that we will put my name in a certain place. Now that's weird to us as English speakers, but it's good theology, it's good Hebrew. That God will be with his people, his name will be there. A few verses later it says, then to the place that the Lord your God will choose to make his name dwell there. So God will choose for himself a place to dwell, to be present with his people. His name. It's all about the name. There are other examples of this. Psalm 20, verse 1 says, "May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of God of Jacob protect you." Now in English we'd say, "May God protect you. May Yahweh protect you." But the emphasis is on the name of the God of Jacob protect you. And then verse 7, a verse you're familiar with, "Some trust in chariots, some in horses. We trust in the name of the Lord our God." Right? It's weird English. Just say, "We trust in the Lord our God." But in Hebrew, in the Hebrew way of thinking about God, name is the essence. We trust not in the idea of God, but the very presence of God. He protects his people because he's with his people. This is why we don't take the name of God in vain. He's with us. And we are to represent him in our comings and goings. One more example in this vein, Isaiah 30. "Behold, the name of the Lord comes from afar, burning with his anger, and in thick rising smoke, his lips are full of fury." Notice there that the name of the Lord comes. He's coming. His presence is coming, and he's ready to fight. So it's about his presence. Now, as we've argued before, I believe that the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament is the pre-incarnate Jesus. We don't have time to defend that or whatnot.
Don't we do the same thing when we pray in the name of Jesus?
Yeah, it's a little different. What we're saying is that by the means of Jesus, we pray. Because apart from Jesus, who's our mediator, we cannot pray directly to God. That's really what we mean. But yes, I think you're right that there's a better way we can put that. Because of Jesus, I pray. Something like that. But we emphasize name. If you follow our hymns, this will come up quite a bit because it's biblical language we adopt. Yeah, so we're not saying that Jesus is present here the way they would have, but we would have said that because of Jesus. Now, we're going to come to the name of Jesus. That's what we're doing now, is that Jesus is the name of God. Right? That's what we're getting in the Old Testament.
Does that have anything to do with the centurion who just told him to speak the word and he needed to come down to his house?
Yeah. It's a reflection of what he actually thinks about Jesus. So in the Old Testament, God creates through words, not incantations. And so when he says, just speak the word, he understands that miracles are an act of creation. So it's not a overriding of the laws of nature. It's actually creating something new. And so speak the words. So that's why he says to the centurion, "I've not found faith like this in all of Israel." So when Jesus calms the storm, he speaks to the storm. That's an act of creation. He's exercising lordship over it. Yeah. And this is all part of that. That the name, I believe Jesus is the name in the New Testament. Jesus is the presence of God in the New Testament. So with that, we can actually look at Hebrews 1. We looked at this some time ago, but I just want to highlight one verse. Jesus is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. We could summarize that. Jesus is the name. That's the point of that verse. He is the radiance of God's glory. Now remember, we talked about this when we looked at glory, that John claims we beheld the glory of God. And so with that comes everything that glory means, but in the mystery of the incarnation, we beheld glory, and no one had ever said that before. Moses couldn't, he had to hide in the cleft of the rock. So the writer of Hebrews, whoever they may be, says that Jesus is the radiance, the light, the brightness of God's glory, and yet you can look him in the eyes. And there's real mystery there. But he is the exact imprint. He is the image of God. He is the name of God. So what does Jesus do then? Here on earth, he represents the Father. When he speaks, it's as if the Father is speaking. When he acts, it's as if the Father is acting. Remember when they get on Jesus, this is in John's Gospel, about working on the Sabbath, and he says, well, my Father's always working. What he's saying is, I'm not doing anything that my Father doesn't do. And I'm here to represent my Father. I'm here as his representative. But of course, in the mystery of the Trinity, he's not just representative, he is simultaneously the one he is representing. You think about that too much, you know. You find yourself under your bed in the fetal position, sucking your thumb, reciting the Greek alphabet backwards. Yeah? But that's the beauty of the incarnation. He is both. In the beginning was the Word was with, thus separate from God. The Word was God, thus one with him. It's both and. That's a good Trinitarian theology. And in fact, Jesus calls on us to do the same thing. John 17. And I am no longer in the world. He's leaving, right? This is the eve of his crucifixion. But they, this is his prayer, high priestly prayer, they are in the world, the disciples. And I'm coming to you. I'm heading out. Now, I've had enough of these people. Keep them in your name. Keep them in your name. What is Jesus praying? He says, I was successful in bearing the name. Keep them. Keep them in the name. Help them to bear the name. You realize that Jesus prayed for you and I in John 17? He prayed for himself. He prayed for the apostles, which is this passage, and then he prayed for us. And he prayed for unity. As the Father and Son are one, so shall we be one. And what's the secret to that? The way Christians will stay unified is if we do not carry the name of God in vain. And the way we keep from carrying the name of God in vain is we realize Jesus is the name. We are Christians. And so we worship in spirit and truth. We can conduct ourselves in a way that is worthy of the name we carry. So we are Christians. Let us act like it. And that's why that third commandment is so important. It's about more than just words you choose. It's who you are. More than that, it's who you represent. And that is a lot weightier. All right. Any questions, comments? Did we miss anything? All right. Well, I prayed Monday, and now Danny can't pray tonight, so he's got to pray next week. He don't have a choice.